Hello everybody and welcome back to OMB Reviews. I am the critic who is a cynic. Hope we're doing well, and today we're doing a box office preview for this upcoming weekend, which sees the new release of Lyle Crocodile and Amsterdam, another David O. Russell film with a massive cast, which apparently is getting panned by critics. I wonder where these critics were when American Hustle came out, as that film was just a complete and utter disaster. But I digress. Before going any further, though, into these numbers, please make sure you smash that like button, slap that fire button if you're watching over on Odyssey, smash the rumble button if you're watching over there. It really does help a lot. And also, of course, make sure that you are subscribed to the channel with the bell notification turned on. That way you know every time a new video or live stream goes live on the channel. Almost got through it that time. But as you can see, Lyle Crocodile, which is going to be a new live action / animated, so the animated character in the live action world, musical from Sony, is expected to take the top spot, making $15 million, which isn't all that much money. However, it could end up being a big gain for them in the long run if they're able to make consistently money over a long period of time. That's going to be much more difficult starting next week, though, as we have our first major, huge budget film coming out next week, which would be that of Black Adam. And even though I do have some thoughts about whether the film is going to be a massive box office success or not, I do still think and know that most people who are going to the theater when that movie comes out or during next weekend are going to be seeing that movie rather than some of the other films that have been out. So it'll be interesting to see where the drop-offs are for a lot of the films that have been out for a while, or for the films that just recently came out in their second weekend when all of that stuff goes down. But Lyle Crocodile is expected to come out. It actually does look, I don't know, I get somewhat of a Paddington vibe for it from it, where, you know, for the first time when I saw the first Paddington trailer, I wasn't all that, it just didn't seem that interesting. But then you actually watched the movie and you said, oh, this is actually really good family entertainment. Lyle Crocodile could end up being something similar. However, it could also end up being a complete disaster, right? Whenever you have a modern day musical adaptation, that's always going to be a bit of a, let's just say a bit of a possibility. Though the music for the film is from Pasek and Paul, and for those that don't know them from the musical world, they have done previous films. For instance, they did the soundtrack for The Greatest Showman, which I think is a very underrated movie, but I believe they also did some of the music for La La Land, which I hated. So it's interesting how they had two movies come out, you know, not too far apart from each other, one of which I hated the score and the other ones which I loved it. And so, once again, you could get a hit or you could get a miss when it comes to Lyle Crocodile. What I was hearing from the trailer didn't sound all that great, just didn't really seem to connect with the images that were on the screen, but we'll have to, of course, wait and see. It is getting a massive wide release, though, coming out over 4,300 screens, according to Box Office Pro, but is expected to win the weekend. We also have Smile, expected to come in the number 2 spot, and many are projecting, or at the very least, there's a projection from Box Office Pro, a possibility, as it were, that Smile, when all the actuals come out, could actually end up repeating its number 1 spot at the box office. And as I mentioned, this film will be at past its break-even point, and that is definitely confirmed by the fact of it making $14.1 million, a 38% drop, 38% hold from the previous weekend. Very, very strong numbers for this movie. And as I said, I think the marketing campaign for this movie and some positive word of mouth is definitely a big factor there. So, hey, kudos to Paramount once again. They had, of course, a massive hit in Top Gun Maverick. Looks like they are doing decently well with this small-budget horror film. Then you have the new film Amsterdam, which, again, David O. Russell is back at it, it seems. Expected to only open the $10.7 million, and I think this continues to help our understanding that movie stars aren't really a thing anymore. They don't sell tickets. People might have that celebrity culture. You know, there are clearly people who follow these celebrities and buy the magazines and want to learn more and more about all the drama. But it seems that people are much more focused on that than on the actual films that these stars are making. If you just look up the cast for Amsterdam, you're like, oh my goodness, this has a lot of big names in it. And yet $10.7 million for that kind of a movie, really not all that impressive when all is said and done. One could argue it's the marketing campaign, but the old adage was, hey, if you had a major star in the film, hey, as long as some people know something about what's going on in the box office, something what's going on in the movie, it's going to be able to bring people out. But that just does not seem all that impressive. And so the fact that critics aren't even liking this movie doesn't mean anything, because the critics are complete idiots these days. But hey, if the critics aren't liking it and audiences are either going to be mixed on this or maybe like it, maybe won't like it, Basically, it's going to come down once again to, hey, audiences determine the financial success of a movie or not. Then coming in next place is going to be The Woman King, with another strong hold of 31%. Again, I've been mentioning this for a while now, that these types of drops are very good for its long-term ramifications, especially as it continues to roll out very, very slowly in other international markets. Even though many are suspecting the film to not reach its break-even point, it only costs about $50 million to make. It still has a ways to go in its release schedule, and so to say it's a flop or guaranteed flop at this point, I think is being a little bit too premature, just because we don't know how it's going to do in some of those markets. I mean, it is expected to open up in places like the UK, if not this weekend, if not very, very soon, then it will be in the next week or two. And then it's also expected to open up in some other markets as well. So we're still holding out whether or not that film is going to be able to make its money back. But let's just say it is not a huge hit, not a huge success, not able to make what similar films of a similar kind would be able to make in that country normally. Maybe it is that they don't buy the propaganda like apparently people in the United States happen to be doing, as these drops seem to be indicating. Hey, we could see this film end up being a flop, but we could also end up seeing it making up some ground, similar to films like Nope, which had a very slow start, but ended up making its money back by when everything is said and done. Don't worry, darling, expected to have a 43% drop in now its third week of release. As I said, it's not looking all that great for this movie, but in a similar situation, it is one where if it has strong holds across the board, it could still, from this point forward, even relatively okay holds from this point forward, it could still end up making its money back. Based on these types of numbers, though, it would have to do very well, meaning it would have to essentially double what it's made in the first 2 weeks of its release in order to hit its break-even point, or to at least do well successfully, do well financially. So we'll have to wait and see on that one. Then we have Bros, gotten a lot of attention recently. A lot of people, of course, blaming homophobia for people not going to see it, when in reality, if you look at the trailer for it, you're like, no, it's just that it's a standard rom-com, and the only selling point that you've given us is that it's featuring a gay couple, which, again, if that's the sole or main thing that we're supposed to go see the movie for, most people, regardless of how they feel about anything, are going to be like, that's okay, that's not reason for me to go and shell out $10 to $15 to go see your movie. I mean, let's just be honest. People want to be entertained. People want to be able to escape from the world around them. And again, a film where the main premise is one specific thing doesn't really seem to be that. Apparently, one of the actors or one of the characters in the film, their occupation is that they are a chocolatier. Just goes to show you how far out of touch people in Hollywood are with the general audiences. But still, actually not expected to have a terrible drop-off of 40%. So I think that I've already seen some videos saying that this is expected to be one of the biggest financial failures of our time. And that's just not based in any reality by the fact that this film didn't really cost all that much money in comparison to some other films. So right now it's at a $30.1 million loss, and that was just with last weekend's numbers. So it's made a little bit more since then. My guess is that this film will probably be, closer to 15 million in the red. And I think that this film will either be expected to lose money, but not all that much by the end of its run, if I had to take a guess. But if you compare that to the likes of films like The Woman King, which is 44 million in the red, Medieval, 28 million in the red, you see that there are films that had much larger financial losses this past year. I mean, if we're talking about financial losses, 3,000 Years of Longing is a great example of a massive financial loss. And so to say that this is one of the biggest financial failures of our time, I think is very much an overstatement. But it's definitely not doing well, that we can absolutely say for sure, as a rom-com featuring a cast, and when you're connecting it to films like Bridesmaids and others, it's, yeah, making over $4 million, and that's all you're making in your opening weekend. It's not all that impressive, but 40% drop, that is, and I'm always going to talk about the numbers and as objectively as I possibly can. Barbarian expected to hang around 26% drop for that movie, so that's the film's continuing to do well. Avatar re-release still hanging out as well, seeing massive drops every single week, but the fact that the film is still making anything in this new run, the 2022 reissue, up to $22.8 million domestically, hey, definitely going to say that is impressive for a film that is just downright garbage. Top Gun Maverick is also still hanging around 1,200 screens. It's now dropped below $1 million per weekend, but this is the 20th or 21st weekend of its release, so it's to be expected, similar to Bullet Train, which has been out for a while and also is able to make its money back. But those are the numbers as they stand as of this point in time. We do have just a couple of updates when it comes to long-range forecasting. Halloween Ends is actually trending upward. I'm just happy that this is going to end. to, for lack of a better expression. So Halloween Ends is the one that actually comes out next weekend, and then the following weekend will be Black Adam. So a small correction to what I had said earlier in the video. I'm sure that there's some keyboard warrior in the comment section who'll be like, you mentioned. Okay, well, it's been fixed. So Halloween Ends, which will have a very small budget, probably somewhere between $10 and $20 million, is expected to make 37 to 47 its opening and total 69 to 88 million. So that's up 6% from previous. I'm just happy that this thing is over. I'm just happy that they are supposedly ending this series, because as much as I love the OG Halloween from the 1970s, I've not really been a fan of any of the reiterations of the restatements, as it were, like this new trilogy of films. I think it's been a trilogy of films. Maybe it's been a quadrilogy. I think it's a trilogy. But either way, I just don't even care about whether it's 3 or 4 or not, because they just haven't been very good. The last one especially was, Halloween Kills was just downright atrocious in so many different ways. I mean, the writing was so convoluted, the whole mob mentality that seemed to kind of try to mirror some of the modern identity politics stuff that we see in today's day and age. I don't know. It just didn't really come across as a very authentic approach to this overall story. But we still have those numbers there for Black Adam. This is going to be one that will be interesting to watch to see if this is going to trend up or downward. We do have some initial numbers for Pray for the Devil, which I've told my thoughts about in a live stream. But the new film that we have, I know some people are interested in the One Piece movie. I've never seen One Piece. I don't really have a genuine interest in it. Not that it's bad. It's just not really my cup of tea. Is expected to open to $8 to $16 million domestically, with a total of $14 to $32 million by the end of its run. So my guess is the film probably didn't cost all that much to make, so that should be a pretty good showing for the domestic side. That's not even going into what it'll make in the international marketplace. But those are the numbers as they stand. What are y'all's thoughts? Do you think that Lyle Crocodile will end up being a good film? Again, it's an adaptation of a short story, or I think it's 2 short stories. There's the actual short story itself, and then there was a prequel to it. It's about a crocodile who can't talk, but he can sing, is the main premise that they're going with there. So could it be the next Paddington? Let me know your thoughts about that. Also, have you seen Smile? Do you think Smile might repeat its approach at the very top of the food chain? And also, what are your thoughts about Amsterdam? Do you have any interest in it whatsoever? Again, I like several David O. Russell films, but he kind of fell off a cliff after American Hustle. And again, I just don't quite understand what's happened with him. And then there's the story with the Woman King, Don't Worry Darling, etc. And you hear a lot of people saying a lot of things, but ultimately there's still a lot of time for these films to be able to make their money back. And so I'm going to keep following them and try to talk about them as objectively as I possibly can, even though, of course, the Woman King, as I will remind everybody, is Hollywood propaganda nonsense, which is trying to perpetuate continuously the false narrative that, when it comes to slavery, it's just the white Europeans that were the problem, when the Dahomey Kingdom was very well known for not only cutting off the heads of the elderly, but also of the tribes that they were conquering, but also were literally selling the people that they captured into slavery, not only within Africa, but also with the transatlantic slave trade. But again, I guess these facts and details are not important. And even though they have this narrative in the movie, apparently, where there's attention about this, which didn't happen historically, it is what it is. But what do you guys let me know in the comment section down below. If you like this video, smash that like button, smash the rumble button, light up the fire button. Honestly, you guys are all amazing and beautiful people. Hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, a blessed weekend, a blessed feast of Our Lady of the Rosary, the victory of the Battle of Lepanto. And as always, God bless. And now for a huge special shout out to all of my locals, Patreon, and Subscribe Star members at the Keeper of the Bifrost level and above. Starting off with Patreon, Father Luca Illick, Garrett Searles, Joe Horn, Jaime Ari Hymason, Jeff Toon, Jonathan Carney, Laura, the Modern Major General Story, Orange Hat Reviews, who you can check out over on YouTube at the channel with the same name, Rosetta Allen, who also has a YouTube channel called Eagle Rider, and Miss Martin Muses, who also has a YouTube channel by the same name. Thank y'all very much, my Patreon supporters. And also for my Subscribe Star peeps, Matt317, who you can check out over on Twitch at Matt317, Storm Tracker, The R, Fast Reaction, Mr. Roy, J-Rod, The Beer Guru, and ZK-Man, who you can check out over at xtheboundaries.co. And lastly, my locals members, Miss Minnesota Hockey Fan, How About a Hockey Player, UAB Mad Dog, Mike Jackson for the win, J.H. Schwalbach, and the great lawyer Robert Barnes. Thank you all so very much for your support. If you would like for your name to be shouted out at the end of every live stream and video, please make sure to check out the top link in the video description where you can sign up over on Patreon, Subscribestar, or Locals. You get access to things not only like shoutouts, but also to giveaways of 4Ks and Blu-rays, an exclusive podcast that I do with John the Flick Pick Flickinger every single month, and also the Chosen of Valhalla live stream for my Chosen of Valhalla members, which we do once a month, and it is a lot of fun. So all of this and plenty of more content, check out those links in the link tree in that top comment down below. You guys are all amazing and beautiful people. Hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. A blessed October to everyone out there. Blessed month of the Blessed Virgin Mary. And as always, God bless.